What is up, YouTube? It's Rules for Rebels here, and today we are going to be talking about Bitcoin. First off, since you guys are watching my YouTube channel, since you guys are into making money online, etc., I'm going to assume that a good portion of you guys are already aware of what Bitcoin is. Because you have an interest in technology, you're on YouTube, etc., etc., etc. I'll give a quick, brief bio into what Bitcoin is, a little bit of the history, etc., for anybody who's a little bit in the dark. Because I am really surprised. I talk to a lot of my friends and people that I come across, and a lot of people, I'm always surprised by how many people have no knowledge of Bitcoin even existing, don't have a clue what it is. First off, what is Bitcoin? It's a digital currency, or cryptocurrency as people refer to them. There is no physical Bitcoins. You can't hold a Bitcoin. There's no paper notes. There's no actual coins. It's completely digital. Now, to a lot of people, it seems like a scam or seems weird. But really, if you think about it, the day probably isn't too far off when physical currency isn't going to exist. I mean, just walk into a Starbucks, walk into a Dunkin' Donuts, walk into a McDonald's, and pay attention to how many people are paying cash as opposed to how many people are using debit cards, credit cards, Apple Pay, paying with their phone, and whatever else people do, right? So the idea that there's a currency that only exists digitally really isn't that crazy, because I imagine most of you guys pay your bills digitally. I imagine most of you guys make a majority of your purchases digitally. So the idea of a digital currency isn't crazy. To give you a little bit of a background on Bitcoin, I'm not going to go into when it started, how it started, etc. Basically, some anonymous guy named Satoshi, is it Satoshi? Hitachi? Started it. I don't recall exactly how long it's been around. I actually got into Bitcoin a couple years ago, right before it hit the peaks of $1,200 per coin. At one point, it was worth pennies per coin. So when Bitcoin got popular and shot up in value, there were literally people who became multimillionaires overnight, because some people bought these coins for anywhere from a couple cents to a couple dollars, and in a pretty short period of time they shot up to being worth like $1,200, right? Back when Bitcoins were about, I don't know, $200, $300, I first started watching them. I think I first bought in when they were about $450, $500. I rode the wave up to $1,200. Unfortunately, I didn't sell, and they came crashing back down to about $600. And in recent history, probably within the last year, year and a half or so, they were as low as $180 per coin. Now, what are Bitcoins? How do you use them? A couple years ago, nobody really knew about Bitcoins. There were very few websites where you could spend them. Where Bitcoins really gained their popularity, and I guess I should say notoriety, is you guys have probably heard of the word the Silk Road. It was basically an online drug marketplace where it's basically like an eBay for weed, heroin, ecstasy, cocaine, and every other crazy drug that you've probably never even heard of. And basically, Bitcoins are, a lot of people think of it as being an untraceable currency. It's not necessarily untraceable, but it's very difficult to trace. Anyhow, a guy set up basically like an eBay type site on the deep web. For those of you guys who don't know what the deep web is, it was created by the Navy like a long, long time ago to communicate on. You need a special browser to access it. It's called the Onion browser, the Tor browser. And basically all these websites that aren't indexed by search engines exist on a deep web. They typically don't have normal domains like you would expect. Like, it's not going to be youtube.com. The domains are normally like ABC underscore 125. You know what I mean? They're crazy domains. If you guys are interested in learning more about it, go search on Reddit. There's a ton of articles and stories about Bitcoins and the deep web and everything else. There's also a lot of YouTube videos if you guys are looking to educate yourselves a bit more in depth about it. But for years, Bitcoins were more popular for illegal kind of underground activities, buying drugs on the deep web, etc. However, when Bitcoin shot up to $1,200, the media kind of took notice, and that kind of caused the masses to take notice of Bitcoins. And like I said, I got involved in Bitcoins a couple years ago. My interest in Bitcoins has kind of been strong and waned over the years. I know the Winklevoss twins, if you guys have seen that Facebook movie or are kind of aware of the Facebook story, the Winklevoss guys who supposedly got the idea for Facebook stolen by Mark Zuckerberg, they're heavy investors in Bitcoin and Bitcoin companies, and I know they're predicting that Bitcoin is going to be worth more than, I think, $40,000 per coin within the next 5 or 10 years. Personally speaking, I do think Bitcoin has a bright history. Just to give a little bit more of a background on Bitcoin, basically how it works, there's something called the blockchain. Bitcoin miners or computers with heavy duty graphics cards basically solve equations, and when an equation is solved, that unlocks a blockchain and bitcoins are rewarded. Now, the longer Bitcoin goes on, or the more time that goes on, and the more blocks that are discovered. And if anybody's really into Bitcoin, I may be explaining things in not 100% the correct way, so feel free to comment below and correct me. But basically, when people's computers solve these problems, it unlocks coins and they're rewarded with coins. Now, it's really difficult to mine bitcoins on your own, which is why a lot of people join like groups and mine bitcoins together and then kind of split the proceeds, so to speak. A little bit more about cryptocurrencies. I think about a year or two back for the Winter Olympics, the Jamaican bobsled team was funded by raising Litecoins. Ever since Bitcoins grew to popularity, Litecoins, doggy coins, or Doge coins as people call them, and a million other copycat coins have sprung up. Bitcoin has kind of managed to stay the most popular, the most recognized, the most used, etc. And like I was saying, a couple years back when Bitcoin surged to $1,200 and people started taking notice, you started seeing more and more companies start to accept Bitcoin. So I think Overstock.com accepts Bitcoins. Let's see. Companies who accept Bitcoins. Let's take a look here. Who accepts Bitcoins, and we can see like a list of companies who accept Bitcoin. So I mean, this isn't some fly-by-night thing. You're going to see some big companies here: Overstock.com, WordPress, Amazon. Target did. Target, CVS, Subway, Victoria's Secret, Namecheap, Bitcoin Travel, PayPal, eBay, etc., etc., etc. Zappo, SM, you guys can see Whole Foods. The list goes on and on and on. Where was I going with this? But basically, I don't know. I've given you guys enough background on Bitcoins. The point of this story, I actually owe you guys an apology because you guys could have made some money here. I've had this video kind of queued up, ready to be made for probably since at least end of March, early April. And if we look back here, end of March. My computer's freezing here. Anyhow, Bitcoins were probably around, I don't know, $400, $420 back at this point. Today, here we sit, it's June 27th of 2016. Bitcoins are currently at a little over $630. Actually, I think it's $666. And as you can see here, back on this spike, Thursday, June 16th, Bitcoins were at $768. So imagine if you had bought some Bitcoins, back here at $415, and today you could sell them for, or I don't know, at least like a week ago, you could have sold them for $768. That's quite a come up. So I'm not encouraging you guys to invest in Bitcoins. I don't like giving investment advice. There's no upside to it. I give friends investment stock tips and things like that. If you make them money, nobody ever gives you any money. There's no reward for it. And if you give somebody a stock pick that doesn't wind up working out well, or if they sell too soon and take a loss, then you're the bad guy. So I'm not saying invest in Bitcoins. I just like making people aware of opportunities. And I think that's kind of leads into another point. I think one of the most important skills you can have as an entrepreneur is being able to sense trends, being able to sense fads, knowing things are going to be big before they become big. And just kind of a quick example of this, like Periscope came out, was it a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago. And I actually thought Periscope was going to take off and turn into something huge, so I got involved in it early on. But pretty much any time a new social media platform comes on, I highly recommend getting involved in it. And here's why. Most of the largest YouTubers out today, or a lot of the largest YouTubers out today, they were some of the first people on YouTube. Now, when you're one of the first people on a platform, A, there's less competition, so it's easier to build up a following or build up a presence on there. B, you've been using it longer than anybody else, so you kind of have a head start in terms of the learning curve and things like that. And also, I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of times if you're an early adopter and a popular influencer on a new social media platform, sometimes it can lead to opportunities like being the first one to beta test, monetizing that platform. And I think it's Instagram. I could be wrong. It's either Instagram or Pinterest. But one of the first employees of either Instagram or Pinterest, like I said, I forget the story, they were one of the first people on Instagram. They developed a following pretty quickly, and as Instagram grew, Instagram actually invited them to joined the company, gave him a job with the company, etc. So there's a lot of benefits that can come to knowing something's going to happen or being at the ground floor of something. And hoverboards are kind of another example. I got into hoverboards, you could say a little bit late in the game, you could say early into the game. I got into hoverboards way before they became mainstream, but I wasn't necessarily one of the first people to start importing them from China. But there was huge money for people who saw that was going to be a big thing, and I actually made a good penny off it myself. So the point of this is just kind of be aware of new things, be aware of trends, etc. But I'm finally getting around to making a video that I actually meant to make. Actually, I got a date here. Way back on March 30th of 2016 at 9:09 a.m. And there was an article published on, where was it published at? ibtimes.com. And the title of the article was Bitcoin price is $200 less than it should be, according to Investment Bank. And I'll quickly read you guys the article. It's not a long one. The cryptocurrency Bitcoin has seen its value fluctuate wildly in the past 3 years, peaking at over $1,000 in December of 2013 before falling to less than $250 a year later. Over the course of the last 5 months, the price of a single Bitcoin has stabilized around the $400 mark, but a new report from an investment back and asset management firm says this is seriously undervaluing the cryptocurrency's real value. The publication from Needham & Company, the first reported by CoinDesk, says Bitcoin has a value as both a digital currency and a payments channel, and having compared the digital currency to the amount of money being invested in gold, it's concluded that Bitcoin should today have a price of $655, which is a 58% premium on today's price of $412. The report goes on to advise investors to buy shares in a Bitcoin investment fund, GBTC. Now, let me interrupt this really quick. Personally, if you want to get involved in Bitcoin, I would recommend buying physical Bitcoins as opposed to buying into a fund, which probably has fees. We'll read on. A fund for those wishing to invest in Bitcoin but without actually buying and holding the asset. GBTC is a fund founded by investor Barry Silbert last year that asked for a minimum investment of $25,000. The report gives GBTC a buy rating that gives a target price of $62. Shares in GBTC closed Tuesday at $54.40. We believe that the price of Bitcoin stands to benefit substantially from rising demand for its two main use cases as a digital gold and an alternative payments channel, said Spencer Bogart, Needham's equity research associate in charge of Bitcoin and the blockchain, and the author of the report. We believe that this rising demand is a result of the relative advantages of using Bitcoin and is being driven by market trends and secular changes such as globalization, continued growth in e-commerce, and by the ubiquity of enabling technology such as mobile phones. As a direct result, Bitcoin is disrupting trillion-dollar markets in payments and value exchange. The report also says $74 billion worth of gold is currently held in exchange-traded funds around the world. Comparatively, 75% of the 6.3 billion Bitcoin market cap is being treated as an investment. Bogart believes that this represents a 6% of the gold held in ETFs. It was these figures that Bogart used to calculate the $655 price. So a couple things about Bitcoin. You know, it's kind of interesting. Bitcoin actually started to fall recently. I don't know if it was people taking profits from the highs or what it was, but you guys have all heard about the whole Brexit thing with the United Kingdom exiting the European Union, which caused the price of the pound, the British pound, GBP, etc., to tank. Well, what happened? A lot of people who were losing a lot of money in the British pound wound up buying Bitcoins to kind of save what they would have lost in the depreciation of their currency. So, as world markets and things like that get turbulent, if people are worried about the dollar losing value, etc., Bitcoin is kind of a safe place to put your money where you're not going to lose that value to inflation. Bitcoin has no central control. There's no one person, no one country, no one entity, no one bank who controls Bitcoin. So Bitcoin can't be shut down. It can't be manipulated. That brings up another point. In terms of manipulation, I've heard that basically in order for somebody to manipulate Bitcoin, they would have to hold something like over 52 or 54% of all Bitcoins in existence, and something like that's just not going to happen, so Bitcoin really can't be shut down. You guys remember, was that a couple years ago when was it Malta or Cyprus? The government shut down everybody's bank accounts and wouldn't let people withdraw money, and then started seizing people's money. Something like that can't happen with Bitcoin because there's no central control. We all know about the PayPal holds, PayPal rolling reserves, etc. As an option for payment processing, Bitcoin transactions are irreversible. So for high-risk industries, which face a lot of credit card chargebacks, there is no way to reverse the charge of a Bitcoin charge. And that's kind of a positive and a negative, because if you send Bitcoins to the wrong Bitcoin address, guess what? You're not getting them back. If you buy something from somebody and you're not happy with the product, there's no way for you to pull your Bitcoins back. So this is definitely, some people may say, oh, well, that makes it too easy for scammers or whatever else. But as long as you're dealing with somebody who you trust, a company who you trust, who's reputable, etc., it's really a benefit for the company, because a lot of industries, a lot of products, a lot of companies have a hard time getting credit card merchant accounts. I've done videos on high-risk merchant processing. Certain industries are kind of blackballed from payment processing and even banking in some instances, because they're considered high risk for money laundering or high risk for credit card chargebacks or whatever else. Bitcoin is a means of payment that nobody can shut down, that nobody can block anybody out of. And I think the example of the deep web with the drug marketplace, heck, even the FBI, even the CIA, whoever else, can't manage to shut down Bitcoin. Now, like I said, it's not completely unanimous that Ross Ulbright, if you guys are interested in any of this stuff, feel free to Google it yourself. I'm not going to give a whole presentation on the deep web, but Bitcoins aren't completely untraceable, but it is something that no central control can stop certain industries from processing payments. It's not something chargebacks can be taken from, etc. So where were we going with this? Let's look at like a 1 year history of Bitcoin here, and this will take a second to load. I'll show you guys kind of what I was doing. So really the point of this video is just to kind of introduce you guys to Bitcoin. I'm always surprised by how many people don't know about it. So maybe some of you guys are into programming or something like that. Maybe some of you guys are into e-commerce and you're in a high-risk industry like selling vaporizers or something, and this is a great new payment platform for you. Maybe some of you guys are interested in buying Bitcoins and speculating on them, or maybe some of you guys are just interested in technology and want to try out a new technology. But regardless of the reason, I just wanted to introduce you guys to this, and then really quickly I'll talk about something that I've kind of been doing, so you guys can see what kind of Bitcoin has done here. What I was doing was kind of speculating on Bitcoin prices. So what I would find is at one point you could buy Bitcoins for, say $200, and then they'd spike up to like 250 and then go back down to 200. So the same way that some people swing trade stocks or swing trade currencies on the Forex, you can do the very same thing on a Bitcoin. Now, why I feel secure in doing this, and some of you guys may not, I believe the long-term value of Bitcoin is higher than it sat back at this point. So I've always felt the long-term value of Bitcoin was more than $200. So even if I spend $5,000 on Bitcoins and they go down to $100, as long as I don't need that money, I'm confident that if I let that money sit in Bitcoin for, could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 2 years, could be 5 years, eventually the Bitcoin will come up and be worth more than $200. Now, I felt the same way when Bitcoin was at like $450. So, sometimes I might buy Bitcoin at 327 and it may go down to 300. Sometimes I may buy Bitcoin at 400 and it may go down to 200. I don't really sweat that because I know at some point it's going to come back up. But what I do is swing trade it. So as you guys can see here, sorry, this chart isn't going as fast as I'd like it. So here Bitcoin was at 326. So I bought some Bitcoin at 326. I sat on them for a while. I let it spike to 408. I sold off a good portion of my Bitcoins. Bitcoin fell back down to 312. I bought back in at 312. As you guys can see here, it climbed back up to 350. I sold off at 350. It went up to 370. It fell back down to 360. I bought some more. It climbed up to, climbed up to 463. I sold off. It dropped to 422. I bought back in. It climbed back up to 450. I sold off. It dropped to 387. I bought back in. So as long as you're confident that the future prospect of Bitcoin is more than where it is today, I really don't see any harm in buying some. And if you want to hold it for the long term, great. If you want to swing trade them and just, when it's up 50 or $100, sell it and take your profits, you can do that as well. I'll briefly tell you guys kind of my overall strategy with Bitcoin. I really do believe that Bitcoin has a bright future. In addition to just being a cryptocurrency, the technology, the blockchain behind Bitcoin is very valuable in itself in terms of payment processing and various other technologies. But I think the, say, 10-year outlook for Bitcoin, it's going to be above $1,000. That's what I feel. I don't necessarily think it's going to be 50 grand or 100 grand. I've heard some people say they think a Bitcoin within the next 10 or 15 years is going to be worth $200,000. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but I do feel like within the next 5 to 10 years, Bitcoin is going to be over $1,000. So whatever money I tie up in Bitcoin, as long as I don't need it for 5 or 10 years, I see it as a wise investment. And along the way, I'm going to swing trade. Now, where I was kind of kicking myself is I was buying Bitcoins at 350, selling them for 400. Buying them when it dropped back down to 350, selling them at 400. And my plan was to always keep a minimum of 20 Bitcoins, for the long term. And recently, Bitcoin had been kind of stagnant. It wasn't really doing much, and I kind of was getting, I don't know, bored, tired of it, whatever. And I had some Bitcoins that I probably bought anywhere from 320, 350, 360, 380. I don't know, maybe 30 something coins all in all. And I sold off a few. I sold off a few more. I sold some to friends. And when Bitcoin spiked at like $500 a while back, I sold off like a good portion of my coins, all with the exception of like 8 coins or so. And I made a couple bucks. I probably made anywhere from $50 to $150 a coin. But recently, I hadn't really paid attention to Bitcoin in a long time, and I just happened to Google Bitcoin price just for the hell of it, and I saw Bitcoin price was like well over $700. And my first thought was awesome, and my second thought was, oh crap, I wish I was still sitting on 30 coins because I probably would have sold them all off and made a pretty hefty profit. But nonetheless, I still had, I think, 8 or 9 coins in my wallet. And I sold those off, and I think I probably wound up making around $2,700. So it was a nice little come up. I'm waiting for Bitcoin to drop back down, and I'll probably buy back in. I don't really know where Bitcoin's going to go, where it's going to level off at. Personally speaking, I'm probably not comfortable buying until it gets to at least, I would say, $550. I think we're going to have a lot of people taking profits. And then you just have the normal ebbs and flows and drops and ups and things like that as well. So I'm probably personally going to wait till it gets around 550 to buy back in. Ideally, I'd like it to be more around 500 or 520 to buy back in. But I'm keeping a close eye on Bitcoin. A couple other resources for you guys. Back when I first got involved in Bitcoin, there weren't really any mainstream exchanges, trustworthy mainstream exchanges where you could trade Bitcoins. I forget the name. I think it was called Mt. Gox. There was one site around back then, which was kind of the big one to go to, and it wasn't even a cryptocurrency trading site. It was actually a site that was meant to trade magic cards that the user had set up to trade Bitcoins. And I think in the end, he claimed his exchange got hacked and he wound up running away with millions of dollars worth of people's coins. And that's actually happened on a couple of occasions. And it actually happened to me on a site called cryptorush.in. I knew not to really trust the site, so I only had a couple $100 in there, so it wasn't a big loss. But back when I first started trading Bitcoins, really the only way to buy Bitcoins, or the easiest way to buy Bitcoins, was through, I think it was called Local Bitcoin or something like that, but basically it was kind of a peer-to-peer exchange where I would connect with somebody in my city or nearby me, and we would meet up at a coffee shop, and I would give him cash, and he would transfer me Bitcoins. Now, some sellers who had a high rating or who people trusted a little bit more, you could go into like a Chase Bank or a Wells Fargo bank and deposit Bitcoins in that person's bank account, and then they'd send them to you, although it'd probably be a safer method to actually meet up with somebody at a coffee shop and make sure you get your coins and then give them the cash. Anyhow, it's not a great way. It's not a way that mainstream people are really going to be buying Bitcoins. So personally, what I use now, there's a site called Coinbase.com, and this is a really cool site. It's wrong site. Coinbase.com. What the hell? Sorry, guys. My screencast won't let me see what I'm typing in my browser. Coinbase. Okay, here we are. So this website really kind of dumbed down the process of buying Bitcoin. Their price is going to be a little bit different than the official Bitcoin price. So as you can see, the official Bitcoin price is $658.25. You're paying $660, but still it's a pretty small margin. Buying stocks and Forex trading and everything else, you're probably going to pay bigger margins in this. And that's one of the big benefits of Bitcoin is it's the fees for sending money are much, much cheaper. Like if you send Bitcoin peer-to-peer, it's literally like fractions of a percent that you're paying as opposed to PayPal or Western Union or whoever else who charges hefty fees. So Coinbase has really kind of dumbed down this process. I personally think Coinbase is probably one of the more reputable, more well-known, larger exchanges out there. What I like about it, there's a two-part verification of logging in. So not only are you going to log in with a password, but they're also going to send you a text message, and you have to verify the code on a text message that they sent you. So even if somebody hacked your Coinbase account and knew what your password was, they're not going to get that text message with the code that they also need to log in. So it's a very secure website. They make buying and selling Bitcoins really easy. Literally within 2 or 3 clicks, you can buy Bitcoins with your bank account or a credit card or a debit card. You can also sell Bitcoin and have that money put in your bank account. Trades do take a couple days to go through, but really Coinbase is it has, in my opinion, has really opened up Bitcoin to the mainstream. Bitcoin still isn't really main, like if you're thinking about setting up a business and using Bitcoin as the main way of receiving funds, in my opinion, it's still not mainstream enough to use it as the only way that you collect money, unless the industry you're in is a very high-tech industry where everybody's going to know how to use it. Like, for example, like if you're selling if you have a business that sells space on servers or something very like tech oriented, in that case, most of your customer base may have Bitcoins and know how to use Bitcoins. But I mean, if you're selling watches or cell phone cases or whatever else, there's probably like a 50-50 shot that the people buying your products even know what Bitcoin is, let alone they have Bitcoins and know how to use it. But I know this is kind of a weird video for me to put out today. It's not exactly a how to make money online video, although for any of you guys who are into making money, investing, etc., you may want to look into, like I said, I'm not encouraging you guys to do so. I'm not telling you guys to do so. I'm not telling you a price point to hop in at. But I make some money swing trading Bitcoins. And for anybody who's into swing trading stocks or trading currencies or anything else, it's something that you may find interesting. And another reason, it's something I'm going to be trying to be doing in a lot of new videos here, is just introducing you guys to new subject matters. I think one of the most important things an entrepreneur can do is stay on top of trends, stay on top of new technology, stay on top of the news, because that's where you're going to find opportunities. That's where you're going to see opportunities for new products. That's where you're going to see opportunities for new services. That's where you're going to see opportunities where there's somebody failing to provide what the marketplace needs to where you can hop in and do it. And I think Bitcoin, even though it's not new, I'm still surprised by how many people don't know about it. And I have kind of a platform here where I can bring awareness of things to a fairly large number of people with my following and a number of people who watch my videos. So I just kind of wanted to make you guys all aware of Bitcoin, turn you guys on to Bitcoin. Like I said, I'm not an expert in Bitcoin, but I have been using it for a few years and I do know a bit about it. So if anything I've said is incorrect, if anybody disagrees with me on anything, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. If anybody wants to add some more clarification on how the blockchain works or what Bitcoin exchange you use or anything else, feel free to post in the comment section below as well. If you guys have any questions for me, again, feel free to post them in the comment section below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If so, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Click that subscribe button at the bottom left of this video. You'll be subscribed to my channel, and you will find out about all the upcoming new videos I got coming out. And stay tuned, guys. We got a lot of other great content coming out later on this week and the following week. So we'll catch you guys on the next video.